My name is Jebediah Stone. I'm making this recording because I don't know what else to do. I'm hoping maybe someone out there somewhere has seen what I've seen and can maybe tell me I'm not going crazy. I've lived on this ranch my whole life, just like my daddy and his daddy before him. We've ranched this land since Texas was still a republic. My granddaddy taught me how to read the clouds, how to know the land so well you could feel it talking to you through the soles of your boots. It's a language of its own. The rustle of mesquite, the lowing of cattle, the sounds of the night. Or at least, it used to be. That's where this all started. Not with the lights, not with the things I found in my fields. It started with silence. About 3 years ago, the coyotes just stopped singing. One night they were yipping and carrying on like always, a rowdy choir spread across the plains. The next, nothing. The whole prairie went dead quiet. For a few nights, I'd sit out on the porch after sundown, my coffee getting cold in my hand, just listening. The silence was so heavy it felt like a physical weight. My two healers, who'd normally be sniffing around the yard, would just lie by the door, whimpering low in their chests, their ears flat against their heads. They knew something was wrong too. The crickets were gone. The birds didn't sing their morning song the next day. It was just dead air. Like the whole world was holding its breath, waiting for something awful to happen. At first, I chalked it up to the way of things. Nature is mysterious. But what I found a week after the silence started, well, that's the real reason I'm making this recording. It was a Tuesday. I was out in the truck, checking the fence line out by the north stock tank. It's rugged country out there, all gullies and rock. I saw a dark shape down by the water. Figured a heifer was just lying down in the shade. But she didn't move as my truck rumbled closer. My stomach tightened a bit. I got out, my rifle in hand, just out of habit, and walked over. It was one of my best Charolais heifers, and she was dead. My first thought was just a weary sigh, another loss to tally, but as I got closer, I saw it. The scene was wrong. I circled her looking for tracks. Cougar, wolf, bear, anything leaves tracks. There was nothing. Just my own boot prints in the dry dust. Then I saw the body itself. There was no blood. None. The ground around her was clean as a preacher's collar, not a drop spilled. But her tongue had been cut out, right at the root. Her udder, too. Both gone. My stomach turned. I've seen what predators do. It's a messy, violent business of tooth and claw. This was clean. The cuts weren't torn or chewed. They were perfect circles, like they'd been made with a white-hot drill. I reached down and touched the edge of one. The flesh was black, smooth and hard, like sealed plastic. It was cauterized. I knelt there, the unnatural quiet of the field pressing in on me, my hand resting on the stock of my rifle, though I had a sick feeling it wouldn't be any use against this. I've seen snake bites, anthrax, cattle rustlers, and droughts. I'm a God-fearing man. I was raised on the good book. I believe there's a heaven above and a hell below, and I believe the Lord has a plan for all his creatures. But I've read my Bible cover to cover, and there ain't a single verse in there that prepares you for something that doesn't bleed. The days after I found that first heifer were thick with a quiet dread. I did what any rancher would do. I called the sheriff. Old Bill Gillespie drove his dusty cruiser out, took one look at the carcass, and scratched the back of his neck. He'd seen a lot in his 40 years of law enforcement, but he'd never seen anything like that. He talked about maybe some new kind of cult. took some notes in his little pad, and told me to keep my eyes open. I knew then that I was on my own. No lawman had a manual for dealing with something that left no tracks and used a scalpel made of heat. The silence on the ranch deepened, and the animals felt it most. It wasn't just my dogs cowering on the porch anymore. The whole herd was spooked. They started staying in a tight, defensive bunch, their heads always up, always watching. They wouldn't go near the north pasture, not even for the good grass. One night, a noise like thunder woke me from a shallow sleep. The whole herd was stampeding, a wave of panic in the dark. I grabbed my rifle and jumped in the truck, my heart pounding, expecting to find rustlers or a whole pack of wolves. But when I got there was nothing. Just the cattle, wild-eyed and trembling, bunched up against the farthest fence line, staring back at the empty, silent fields. Something had been there. Something they could see, but I couldn't. I started staying up later, unable to find sleep. I'd just sit on the porch, my rifle across my lap, watching the sky. The stars out here are a sight to behold, clear and bright. I was watching Orion rise one night, the air getting that sharp autumn chill, when I saw them lights. They weren't planes, they weren't satellites. They were 3 points of impossibly bright light, like someone had punched holes in the night, arranged in a perfect, rigid triangle. I watched, barely breathing, as one light vanished and reappeared instantly a few miles away. There was no streak, no travel time, just gone from here and there in a blink. Then, as one, they began to move. They pulsed a soft, sickly green glow and shot across the sky at a speed that made my mind ache. They made a perfect 90-degree turn, a maneuver that should be impossible, then accelerated straight up and vanished from existence. I sat there for a long time, the wood of the rifle stock feeling cold and useless in my hands. My mind was scrambling, trying to find a box to put this in. It had to be drones, some new secret project from the Air Force Base over in Del Rio. It had to be, but my gut, the part of me that knew the land and the sky, was telling me something different. It felt ancient, and it felt wrong. I knew I hadn't been dreaming. The next morning, I took the ATV out to check on the herd after the night's commotion. I was cresting the big hill that overlooks the wide south pasture when I saw it. I cut the engine, the sudden silence ringing in my ears. The entire pasture, a field of tall dry grass, had a pattern carved into it. It was a massive circle, 100 feet across, and inside it were other circles and lines, a piece of geometry so complex and perfect it looked like a blueprint laid out by God himself. I walked to the edge of it, my boots sinking into the soft dirt. The air inside the circle felt still and strangely warm. There were no tracks, no sign of any vehicle or person. I looked at how the grass was laid down. Every single stalk was bent over, about an inch from the ground, not a single one broken. They were woven together in a tight, swirling spiral. It was, neat. Too neat. I reached down and touched it. It was like a machine had carefully ironed a message onto the land, a message I couldn't read, written in a language I didn't know. And I had the terrible feeling that I was the only one meant to see it. After I found that circle, the nights got harder. Every night was a watch. I wasn't just spooked anymore. I was hunting for an answer. I'd sit on the porch, rifle across my lap, and just stare out into the dark, waiting. A few weeks went by. It was a hot, still night, the kind where the air's so thick you feel like you're breathing water. I must have nodded off, 'cause I woke up with a jolt. Not from a noise, but a feeling. A low hum, like a big engine idling way off, but I could feel it right in the fillings of my teeth. The dogs were gone, hiding somewhere, completely silent. I stood up and looked out to the south pasture, and my heart just about stopped. Hanging in the air over that field was a patch of sky where the stars just weren't. A blacker than black triangle, quiet as a tombstone. No lights on it, no windows, just a big, perfect, three-sided shape that was somehow taking up space where God's stars ought to be. As I stood there, a pale green light dropped down from the bottom point of it. It lit up one of my cows, and the poor thing just went stiff. Then it started to lift. No noise, no struggle. Just floated right up off the ground, limp as a dish rag, and disappeared into the bottom of that black triangle. The thing just sat there for another minute. Then in the blink of an eye, it wasn't there anymore. The stars behind it popped back into view. The hum was gone. The heavy quiet rushed back in. I stood there for God knows how long, my rifle feeling about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. I'd finally seen the butcher up close. The next morning, the sun came up and tried to lie to me, like everything was normal. I was out fixing a trough when I saw the dust cloud coming up my long driveway. A black government sedan crawling through my pasture, like a beetle in a clean sheet. 2 men got out. They wore dark suits and city shoes that were already covered in dust. "Mr. Jebediah Stone," the tall one said. His voice was flat as a panhandle highway. "Reckon I am," I said, leaning on a fence post. "We're with the Department of Energy," he lied. "Had reports of some unusual atmospheric phenomena in this sector last night. See anything yourself?" I looked him square in the eye. I thought about the black triangle and my stolen heifer. I knew right then, looking at these fellas, that they weren't here to help me find a lost cow. They were here to see what I knew, to keep me quiet. "Can't say I did," I said, slow and easy. Was a quiet night. Nothing but stars. The 2 men just stood there. The tall one gave me a smile that never touched his eyes. It was a look that said, "We know you're lying, and you know we know." "All right then, Mr. Stone," he said. "Thank you for your time." They got back in their car and drove away. I watched their dust trail disappear, and a different kind of fear settled in my gut then. A cold one. It wasn't just strange critters from the sky I had to worry about now. It was my own kind, too. And I was standing right in the middle of it all. After those men in the black suits drove off, life got quiet again. But it was a different kind of quiet. A heavy kind. I felt like I was being watched even when the sun was high and bright. The big crazy stuff stopped for a while. No more circles, no more visitors. But the wrongness of it all, that stayed. It sunk into the dirt like a bad rain. The seasons turned, weeks, months. It's been about 3 years now, and little things started happening. On a dead still night, I'll hear a sound, not a critter, not the wind, a high, thin ping, like a hammer tapping steel way off in the distance just once. Other times I'll see little lights like fireflies zipping along my fence line faster than any drone. They seem to be checking the posts, watching the property. I go to church on Sundays, same as always. I hear the preacher talking about temptation, about the devil walking the earth. I pray on it, I do. But what I saw don't feel like a demon from a storybook. Demons are meant to be loud and proud with their evil. This is quiet and patient and mechanical. Then I think maybe it's just the government, some new spy plane or weapon they're testing out in a brush country where no one will see. But that don't add up either. Why the dead cow? Why the games? Why not just do your business and go? So I'm caught. I got what the Bible tells me on one side, and what my own two eyes have seen on the other. And neither one makes a lick of sense of this thing. The not knowing is a splinter in my mind, and I can't get it out. That's why I'm making this recording. I'm tired of carrying it alone. I know I ain't crazy. I know what I saw. But I feel like the only man alive who's seen behind a curtain he wasn't supposed to know was there. So I'm putting this out there however a fella does that. If you've heard that silence, if you've seen lights that move wrong, if you've found things on your land that don't belong to God's green earth, I'd surely like to hear about it. I'm just an old rancher in West Texas, but I can't be the only one. Am I? Please tell me I'm not the only one.